I sent it over to you and you hated it. No, you fired me.
And that's completely true. I came this close to scrapping the entire project and just deciding not to work with Fiona any further because of unclear communication, frankly, on my part. I'm very much to blame for how it started off. And so I think it's exciting and very interesting to talk about the sort of rough patches you may have in a working professional relationship. Because not everything is dancing on rose petals, which is a term I borrow from Icelandic, which doesn't make any sense if you really start diving into it. But not every working relationship is smooth sailing from the very start to the end. There's going to be rough patches. There's going to be unclear communication. There's going to be maybe blame. There's going to be maybe anger. None of that actually happened. We all kept our cool pretty easily throughout this project. But it's scary to think about that if I hadn't sort of mindfully been aware of where I was going and what I was doing and stopped myself from knee-jerk canceling the project, I would not have this record that I'm immensely proud of out there that I can promote and share with people and send it to my friends, family, and fans. And I thought it would be interesting to share those insights with you so that you might be more aware of how to work with a producer or work with an artist if you are a producer, so that you can maybe anticipate those rough patches that you might have in a working relationship. So we're back to our third part in the production strategy series that I'm doing with Fiona Foreman, my producer that I hired for Home to You. And I'm excited to dive deeper into the story of how we took this rough demo and transformed it into a full production that's available everywhere you stream music, on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, everywhere you, Bandcamp as well, don't forget that. And so check that out right now. And then let's dive into the next part of the interview. I guess like I sent you the references and then you just went to work starting on the track. And what I sent you was a rough scratch recording of the acoustic guitar and the drum, or the scratch recording of acoustic guitar and vocal, and the drum track that
Yep.
we recorded here. And I said, all right, I'm wedded to the drums. I want Ty to be on here. I want this to be like the drum track. And so let's try to build something from here, which was
Yep.
different and new to you in a certain way, right?
Yeah, it was new because I'd never worked to a final drum track first. Like usually, again, I'm usually producing the drums, programming them, and you get to fiddle. You get to, oh, I reckon it would sound good if we did this. But this is the drum track. And so it was very interesting because you had, this is the drum track and this is the vision. And it's like, okay, now how do I match those two together? Yeah, so it was cool.
Yeah. And then you basically went and sent me what you call like maybe a first draft, right?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. I did a few hours work and I had some vision in my head of where it was going. And it's important. I find it really important. I really want, obviously, to make my client happy. So I want to communicate clearly throughout the process. I don't want to spend 25 hours putting something together and they go, actually, that's nothing like what I had in mind. So I usually do a session or maybe two and get some guts of the song together and send it over and say, are we heading in the right direction? And I remember I had this sort of smooth clean electric guitar part, and I could hear it sitting underneath things, and I could hear it as a sort of an intro to build the song up. And I had that, and I had, I can't remember what I had. I really just chucked a bass track down. Yep. So there was a low end in there and a couple of synths maybe, because you'd said that you'd like to hear some arpeggiated synths.
Yep.
And also that edge guitar part, the delayed guitar part that you'd said you'd like. And I thought, that's a start. Yep. See if we're going in the right direction. I sent it over to you and you hated it. No. You fired me.
And that's really interesting. And it's fun to talk about it because like when people maybe imagine that it's like when you work together, everything just works out great.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like that because it was like, I got this back and I was like, and also because I'd also sent you like a weird bounce of the vocal, and it had a vocal tag at the beginning. I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? And it was totally my fault.
Yep.
And
I said,
so, yeah, exactly. And so what I got back, I was like, oh man, this is not what I'm thinking. This is not what I'm hearing in my head. So I went back and forth of, is this the right thing? Are we actually going to fit together? Or can we work together? And I
very
thought,
good.
because it was like, there was a moment for me, and it's interesting to talk about it and say it in public. It was like, all right, do I continue working on this, or do I just cut my losses?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I thought, let's, like, I'm way too impulsive all the time. I know myself. I'm not that old, but I have gotten some self-awareness throughout my years of being like, stop. And I think it might be some of the meditation of going like, all right, think about this. Here are your options. Like, you could cut your losses, and then what? Right?
Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
you got nothing, right?
Yeah.
Instead, let's just be frank and be honest about
Yes.
what you like and don't like. Really take it upon yourself to be honest and working with this other person and tell them what your feelings are about it. And also, because I try not to be a dick
Yeah.
and
Be
like
nice
not
about
be,
it.
yeah, be nice about it, but not be insulting, not be like super like down in the dirt about it, whatever. And so I was like, all right, this is not exactly where I was thinking about where it was going. I do like these parts. This is cool. I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. The bass isn't where I was thinking about it. And then I think at that point, I sent you the old live recording,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which you hadn't heard before,
No,
which
that's right.
which is the entire reason for the song like coming to life, is because I
Yeah.
discovered that recording, and I thought, this is a cool song. It has this sort of galloping feel to it from the bass and the guitar, all of which has now been replaced with other much more cooler things. But it was at that point that I was like, hey, take a listen to this, and maybe that'll give you some ideas. Hopefully we can keep working at it. I don't want to like sink my costs here or whatever. I want to see where we can go with this, right?
Yeah. And I so appreciated that open, frank, honest, and kind way that you did that, Bjorgman, because again, I only want you to be happy. If you're not happy, I'm not happy. It's not personal. If you don't like that particular line that I've played, I can play another one. I can. It's not like my life's work.
Right.
It is that particular bass line. And it comes from, it's really interesting, isn't it? The humility, your humility, and the producer's humility to say, it's okay. It's not sheep stations. That's not a saying in America. Right. It's not the end of the world,
right,
if we have to change direction. And that is exactly why I sent you what I initially had done, because clearly I was a bit off track. And then you realize, oh, there's another piece of information that's been missing, and that might help. And if I just kept going and done what I thought without that piece of information, we would have been even further off track.
Yeah, you would have wasted so much time, and that would have been annoying to you.
And you. Yeah.
Totally.
So, yeah, that was really good. And I'll tell you, the other thing I just want to mention is I really like the way that it didn't quite work, but the way that you used Loom to try and, unfortunately, the sound of the actual track didn't come through. But
yeah, there's some routing problem with all the different virtual audio drivers that I have.
Yeah, but that's something I hadn't thought of doing before, and it's a really good idea. I often will do that live, like on a Zoom like this, play through the track with a client and say, what do we think about this part? What do we think about that part? But you did it. You recorded your own commentary on the track as I'd sent it to you. So that was really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny, that part of the process all just came down to ego in a way, or realizing that you have to put it away. There's a book called Ego is the Enemy by Ron Holiday, one of my favorite writers. And it's like talks about that, how in order to move forward with creative projects, you have to be really self-aware about your ego getting in the way, right?
Yeah.
You're your own worst enemy in that sort of sense. And I think at this time, I realized something, and I found you in a pop group. I was really interested in the arpeggiated synths of sort of the pop vibe and all that. But at the end of the day, I wanted the song to rock more. Right?
Yeah. And that's right. And I was trying to lean it pop because of those reasons.
Right.
And you wanted it to rock more, and that's where it came from as well. It came from that punky rocky almost. And we ended up marrying the two, which is cool, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it we spend a little bit of time talking about the bass, and the bass in the song. I love how it came out because it's a lead player. There's always something going on in the bass. It's not in the mix. It's not like super audible, but I think that if you listen, you can always you could follow the bass line the whole way through. It's at least I've created enough separation in the mix for you to be able to do that. But that sort of idea of all right, it needs to be punkier, right? That was what we talked about. And then I was like, you know what? If it was more of a moving bass line, like a Muse bass line, because Muse, that bass player is all over the place. His bass lines aren't following a chord progression. They're their own riffs that are their own separate things. And I think that once we nailed that, the sort of foundation of the song was really strong.
Yeah, and bass and drums are absolutely, obviously, the core of a song, aren't they? They set the tone. And being a bass player myself, I call myself a bass player. I learnt piano and violin as a kid, but when I was about 16, I went on a camp and learnt bass from this awesome bass player. I sat with him for the whole camp pretty much, and this is cool. And so I played bass for many years in bands and whatnot. So when you said the bass, when you say something about it needs to be a bit more riffy, it's oh yeah. I've been training myself to just keep the bass in its pocket in the pop world. Often it's not so riffy, but yeah, that was so fun. It was like you let me off the leash. Then it was cool.
Yeah, and that totally made a huge difference in just the vibe of the song. And then you sent me another revision, and I was really loving the direction at that point. Can you tell me what happened? What did you add? And how did it progress?
I remember you said, should we cut our losses? And I'm like, yeah, we can, but there's more in here that you're not hearing yet. And I'm hearing what you're saying. I hear that we're a bit off track. I really wanted to keep at it. And I knew I could. I really felt confident that I could meet the brief. I really appreciate that you didn't cut your losses and gave me another chat.
Yeah, I was so happy with it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I think from that, and I'll tell you something really interesting. That little slow guitar part that you said, I don't like that, is actually the piece that opens the song now.
Yeah, I know. I left it in. I
know. I think I got the vibe that you were almost get rid of it. And I was like, actually, I think it needs to be there just to sit under everything else I've got coming. So I'm just going to leave it in there. And I felt a bit naughty. He won't like that. But anyway, once I had the more punkier, rockier direction, I was going too pop. Let's go a bit, come back to the rocky, leaning towards punk direction. I got my guitars out and my cool amp that my husband made. Actually, is so cool, versatile. I won't talk about tone, but yeah, got some more rocky sort of tones happening and added the more almost grungy guitar flavor underneath. And the bass line I actually did too. I was trying a few different lines as far as the bass goes, and I sent you my favorite and I said, I've got another one if you don't like that one, but you did the one that I thought was better, which is cool. Again, you could have said, no, what else are you, because I told you I had another one, but you didn't. You said, no, I like that. It's really so interesting that the one I preferred was the one that you liked it. Yeah,
we were really joining visions at that
point. Coming together on the same path. Yeah. So I think I would say that I probably sent the first version I sent to you would have been 30% done, and then the second version I sent was probably more 70% done. I would say, because I think we did another revision or two after that, and I don't think I added heaps more in by the time we got to revision 2 or 3. So
I don't remember there being a ton more. It was more that you were just refining.
Yeah.
At this point of the process, the song was more or less done. It was getting to the point where I was going to get the tracks back. And because we had originally agreed that she was just going to do the recording and the production and not the mixing or mastering, which she usually does as well. So that was a new thing for her, to not really mix as you go. And so in our next video, we are going to be talking about that process, how when you are delivering tracks to an artist, you kind of do have to mix at least a little bit as you go, so that you can at least show them the sonic vision that you have in mind. And so we'll talk about the deliverables I got from her, both the dry and the wet tracks, and what I actually ended up using in the mix that was the sound of the song to begin with. So more on that in the next part of the interview. Stay tuned for that. Please make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube. And if you want to check out the song, it is called Home to You by Random Somebody, because if this random somebody can make music, so can you. And so check that out, and I'll see you in the next one.